Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Matt at the cabin. It is dawn out. Actually, the sun is finally coming up enough for me to do a video. I've been out and about for hour and a half, just getting a good walk in, and figured I would take a little bit of a rest. And I've been wanting to do a video like this for a while, but I was just waiting for the right time and the right, I don't know, environment to do it in. And this is it. So I'm going to do a video this morning of my story of sobriety. I've gotten some people who have asked me, what was it that led you to sobriety and to giving up alcohol, and how has it been along the journey? And these are things, just whether it's personal relationships I have or work relationships with people who know that I've done that, and also for myself. So I figured I would do this video here. I'm in a great little piece of the woods. I found an awesome bench here, and so let's get into it. The first part is sobriety. Did I have this one huge moment where I, was like, holy crap, I got to do something different, and I almost killed myself or whatever in a car accident, or I made a horrible choice and this would happen, and my eyes all of a sudden woke up and boom, that was it. That wasn't really my story, to be honest. There were a lot of other things that kind of went into it, and it was a slow process for me, where I just started to realize that there were a lot of things out there that I needed to do differently, and that I needed to take time and kind of reflect on. So were there times where I drank too much? Certainly. Were there times where I wanted to go out and have a drink or two? Certainly. But I just couldn't do that. I couldn't go out and have a drink or two. I would have 10 or 12 or whatever that number is. There were very rare times where I could actually go out and enjoy just having a bourbon, which, I loved, and I've talked about that before, where it would turn into 4 or 5 bourbons, and, half the bottle would be gone in a sitting and stuff like that. Certainly there were times where, mentally, socially, emotionally, spiritually, I hurt myself and I hurt others. I've talked about some of those things, and I'm not going to get into the details of it, but I wasn't taking care of myself, and I was not taking care of the people around me. I wasn't really fulfilling the roles that I had as a husband and father as I wanted to. And again, this is just my story. It's just where I am. It doesn't have anything to do with anybody else, but maybe some people can come to this realization as well and figure out what's going to be best for you. So at the end of the day, there was an incident that I do look back to a date that I decided to really just start over. And that's the term that I use. I actually have a little tattoo with starting over with the date, because I'm obviously committed to it and stuff like that. And that was March 13th, 2022. So I was 42 years old. I'm 45 now. It's about 2.5, coming up on 3 years in March. And I started drinking when I was probably 12. I had my first drink when I was 12. I experimented at some friends' houses, at like a lot of kids probably do, just mix it together at a friend's parents' liquor bar or whatever, and you do a little bit of this, a little bit of this, a little bit of this, you sip on it. There's older siblings, and you drink some beer or whatever. And so for 30 years, I decided to drink, and drink heavily at times, and my college years often were, filled with that. And it's sometimes sad. I look back now and I really think that, of course, I had great relationships, awesome relationships. But the most meaningful relationships are ones that are built without any alcohol, and that you have a clear mind and a clear idea of why you're engaging in those relationships, and people take care of each other. And I think if I look back to college, for sure, and I know that this is normal. Well, I don't want to say normal. I know that this happens. There is so much reliance on drinking, and so much pressure socially to drink, either to fit in or to meet people. It is everywhere. And of course, I was a part of that. And there were times where I did lots of day drinking. I mean, I remember a time where I went over to a friend's dorm room with a 30-pack of beer and a 12-pack of donuts, and we did beer and donuts. We would do that on the weekends sometimes. And as weird as that sounds, I don't think, at least I didn't know, if people viewed that as being so outside the norm. And we, before noon or before 2 p.m., we would be X amount of beers in and donuts and whatever. It's just disgusting now that I think about it, but that's the way it was. And a lot of that was a blur, you know, like, yes, I had great relationships, but I'm going to say it because I think I have to say it. My best relationship, or at times the best friend that I had, was alcohol. And that hurts to say because I think I missed out on a lot of different opportunities. And, you know, that sucks sometimes because in my life, friends came and went. Maybe I didn't engage in relationships like I needed to, or friendships like I needed to, because I didn't trust. And, you know, I could always go back to alcohol. It never let me down. And that is a tough realization, but I'm kind of at peace with it in terms of moving forward and recognizing that that's what it is. So back to March 13th, 2022. For me, it was kind of a normal get together, you know. It was just at a family friend's house, and my kids were playing with their kids, and I actually didn't even plan on drinking that much. And this was the issue, I think. Like, I wouldn't plan on it. I would plan to go out, I would plan to drive home and all that kind of stuff. And then I'd have 1, 2, 3 beers, you know, heavy beers, 7-8% IPA. And then, you know, the bourbon would be brought out, or the whiskey would be brought out, and it'd be like, sample this, take this, sample this, try this. And before you know it, I was drunk, you know, and I kind of tried to hide that at times from a lot of people, and certainly my kids. But that night, I just, you know, I felt really nauseous about being that drunk, and it was really impacting me. And I went to the basement when we got home, and obviously my wife drove home. And I just fell asleep on a cold bathroom floor in the basement alone. I think I might have had a blanket. I don't know if I had a pillow. I don't really remember, to be honest with you. And I did that because, number one, I didn't want my kids to see me like that. Number two, if I was going to get sick, certainly I didn't want it to impact anybody else. I didn't want anyone else to feel it, hear it, nothing like that. And I didn't, but that's not the point. I woke up that morning and I was like, shit, is this really the person that I want to be? Is this Matt, the father, the husband? Is it Matt for myself? Is it who I want to be for myself? Is this really where I'm at? You know, I'm 42. Is it the best that I can be? And it was a slow progression to that point. But certainly at that point I said, you know what? I'm done. I think I'm going to try 30 days. And I had heard a little bit about like dry January. I had started to do some research on the impacts of alcohol, mentally and emotionally and physically, you know, those types of things. So I kind of knew a little bit that I was already dabbling in some of that stuff. But that was the moment that I really look back on and say, all right, with a clear mind, I'm going to see what's in front of me, and I'm going to make some changes. And a lot of people say that, and it takes time. I've tried to do it before, and it didn't really work. And that was the first big step, those 30 days. And then from there, it became 60 days and 90 days. And then it was 6 months. And then it was a year. And a year was awesome. I was proud of that year. And I came across an article that my dad shared with me about my Uncle Dan and his recovery from alcohol. And I read the story that, you know, he really recovered. He's been 42, 43 years sober. I reached out to him. And all of a sudden, these pieces started to just fall together like, hey, there's so much more out there when you're sober. It's such a better life when you are sober. So I guess, why did I stop drinking and why did I decide to be sober? Really for my kids, my relationships that matter, for me. You know, those were really the pieces that were important to me. You know, alcohol, you kind of think it helps people become better socially, but it only increases anxiety. You know, some people think alcohol helps you sleep better, but it just makes you sleep worse. You know, alcohol is just that arm of alcohol is strong, but man, it's a negative arm, certainly, and it's filled with lies. And if people are in those situations, then, you know, you gotta figure out why sobriety is important to you. Why is it more important to you? And if that's a clear answer, you're ready. If it's not a clear answer, you may not be. And then from there, you know, I started to dabble into some other things in terms of life changes, getting on hikes, really investing in myself and time and nature. Certainly the cabin is important, and I started to reinvest in that a little bit. I used to joke that it was a bourbon shack, and it's not. Like, I didn't want my kids to feel that. I didn't want to feel that. So I got rid of empty bourbon bottles that I had in there that I had drank that meant something to me, my favorite bourbon, this or that. That was gone. And now the cabin is more of a peaceful place of serenity where, you can go and relax and have a wood fire and eat or drink coffee with someone or whatever. And that's really a much better thing. So I decided to become sober because those other things in my life were more important than drinking. They were more important than chasing the next drink. They were more important than fighting through a hangover by drinking more. Like, those things just became more important, and that was a realization I came to. So what has the last 1,020 days been? The last 2.5 years, almost 3 years? Man, they've been beautiful. Like, there's ups and downs. I'm not going to lie about that. Nobody's going to lie about that. I've talked about how I've had some really anxious moments, and I'm not going to repeat those things, but in general, I'm in a good spot. I'm beyond it. But there are things that pull you back, and they're kind of unexpected, and all of a sudden it sneaks up and slaps you in the face and says, hey, come on back. It's going to be fun. Just have a drink. Just do this. Just engage in this. It's going to be great. Hey, come on back, friend. You got to get past that. You got to get past those urges. The thing that I've realized the most is you have to be able to fill your idle time with things that are going to be important to you. So if a lot of your time after work was spent drinking, right? I had a stressful day. I'm going to have a couple beers. It's the weekend. I'm going to go out and watch football, and I'm going to have some beers. I'm going to do yard work. I'm going to do this. I'm going to relax at the end of the day and have a couple bourbons. If that so much is about your idle time, you need to find things to fill that idle time. Because if you're just sitting around and thinking, that's what you're going to be thinking about. So fill your idle time with, going out with friends. Find sober events at first. If you need to have non-alcoholic beer, I did that at the beginning. Get in nature, go for hikes, do different things that are going to be beneficial for you, whether it's meditation, yoga, whatever it is. Those things are going to be important. So the other reason that I really decided to quit were the health risks with alcohol and also the health benefits of being sober. So when you are drinking heavily, and heavily is really like 3 to 4 drinks a week, believe it or not. I mean, I've talked about the Huberman Labs. You can check that out. Tons of great resources there. It impacts your sleep. It impacts your body. It impacts your liver, certainly. The risks for cancer skyrocket with drinking. Breast cancer in women has been connected to drinking alcohol. And, the mental, social, emotional parts are equally as important, because as much as people think alcohol is going to help in terms of anxiety or depression or things like that, it's a bad cycle. It makes it worse. And when you break that, you can start to finally work on yourself. You can't work on yourself when you're chasing the next drink, when you're looking for the next thing to get you through a hangover. You're looking for the next party. Like, you're not going to work on yourself. If you really want to work on yourself and be the best person you can be, you got to give that up, because it's a block. It blocks you off from being able to really see who you are, what your values are going to be, and how to be the best person that you can be. And a lot of that work can only be done if you're going to be sober. You're not going to work on your anxieties or your depression or your moods, or, really be able to work on your physical self if you're drinking. I mean, I used to, if I went for a run in the past or whatever, and I looked at my watch, I got, 15,000 steps today. Awesome. I'm going to have a beer. Like, what the hell am I doing? Why would I reward myself with something like that after a great day of physical activity? But tons of people do that. And so the next part is, where do I go from here? I'm trying to pay it forward. I'm not screaming from the mountaintop. I certainly am not going to be the person who, looks down on other people for the choices they make. A lot of people make the choice to be sober for different reasons. Some it's because there's alcoholism and addiction. Some it's the life changes. Some it's a lifestyle thing that you've looked into. Others, it's just that's in the past, and there's bad memories there, and you just want to make some different changes moving forward. So I think whatever the reason is, sobriety is certainly a clear choice, and paying it forward is really important. So, maybe these videos help some people if they tap into it. If people ask me, I'll certainly talk to them about it. But, if people are going to be at different gatherings, family gatherings, I'm going to go out, You know, to work, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It all depends on how I feel in the moment. Sometimes I'm great with it, sometimes I'm not. But I'm not going to tell people, hey, I'm leaving because everybody's drinking. I'm not going to do that. But what I am going to do is just step away, right? I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to go for a walk. I'll be back in a little while. And people just have to accept that. If they don't, I don't really care anymore. Like, that doesn't really matter to me. I'm going to do what I'm doing for me. I'm going to take care of myself. And that's just where I'm at. And it's the most important. So I think that's what the next steps are going to be, is continue to pay it forward. Continue to seek out different activities that, you know, put me in the best place that I can be for myself and for my family. Those are the most important things. And you know, lastly, I'll end with this. Making the decision to become sober can be scary for a couple reasons. First, you don't know what you're getting into. You don't know how good it can be until you really step into it and you give yourself an opportunity to really make those changes. That's number one. Number two, you probably are going to have to give up some social circles and some friends who just aren't going to get it. And that's okay. I've talked about that, right? Like, your relationships that matter and are important are the ones that are going to be reciprocal and people care about you. And if other people don't see it and they don't want to believe in your story, you probably have to move on from those people. And you just have to be at the realization to be comfortable with it, because it's about being at peace. It's about being sober. And it's okay to be selfish in those certain situations. But that can be scary for sure. And then third, how are you going to fill your time, right? Like, what if you fail? What if you move forward and you're three weeks in, or a month in, or 6 months in, or whatever, and you have a drink? Get on it. Like, okay, forgive yourself, move forward, continue to push forward. It's good. And it's awesome because things start layering on themselves. Like, you start to level up with success and you start to level up with goodness. It just starts small with sobriety in 30 days. Then it gets into all sorts of other things. It gets into like spirituality and redefining yourself for what that means. And man, your relationships just become so much better. And, you know, if you have mental health stuff, it becomes so much better. You can really work on it and invest your time into it. And all of that stuff you're not going to be able to realize or fulfill unless you start to progress from step to step to step to step. So it starts with sobriety, and it starts with those initial life changes for yourself. But then it moves on to many other elements. You start to really figure out who you are. Your physical health becomes so much better. You really define yourself spiritually. You can look at the world and your immediate world and your workplace and your personal life. And when things occur, it's not the end of the world. It's not, you don't have these huge ups and downs, you know, with anxiety and stress and things like that. You're able to work through those things much more efficiently and in a much more healthy way. But you're not going to experience those things unless you take the first step, and unless you start and try to move down that road of being sober, you know? So that's kind of my story. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty details of things and some of my experiences with alcohol. Some of those I keep to myself. It's not going to serve a purpose other than to, you know, detail them, and I'm not going to do that. But for me, it wasn't something that smacked me in the face. It was a slow push that got me there, and then I finally said, look, this is what I want to do. And there are people that supported it, namely my wife and some others. And, you know, now I'm journaling about stuff, and I'm doing hikes, and I'm paying it forward in different ways. And when people ask me about stuff, you know, I will certainly talk to them about it, but I'm not going to pressure anybody to make the changes that I've done, because you got to make it for yourself. And those are all really great things. So if you want to be in a situation where you level up and you start to layer success after success after success, then you can start with those first couple steps, those first couple days, those first couple weeks, whatever. Those are just awesome things. Recently, I was with my younger daughter, and, you know, she was making her first penance, and I'm not here to, you know, profess any religion or anything like that. My spirituality is an amalgamation of, you know, traditional church and being in nature and finding spirituality in nature and those types of things. But the point of this is, my daughter was making her first penance, and they had a little one on the side for adults. And I went in there, and I didn't know what to expect. I hadn't done penance in probably 35 years, to be honest. I probably did it twice in my life. And I did it because I had to, and then I did it shortly thereafter. But I was planning on going in just talking about how I've made some good choices in terms of alcoholism and things like that. And, you know, it was very, very eye-opening. It was very cathartic. And I didn't really think that it was going to be, but it was another one of those steps that I've taken that were important, and hopefully, you know, through these videos and other things, you can take some of those steps for yourself. So like I always do, AA is a great resource if you're looking for those things. There's a ton of stuff online though that you can find too that is great depending on your lifestyle and what works for you. There's the Meeting Guide app. There's smartrecovery.com. But you got to make the choice to do it for yourself and for those people around you, and hopefully you will. So that's my story, my immediate story. I decided to start over on March 13th, 2022 at 42 after 30 years of drinking in different forms, whether it's, you know, a lot of drinking, a little drinking, time off, back in, not successful with quitting or whatever, didn't want to quit, loved it, all those things. But I decided to start over at that point, and it is the best decision I've ever made. And hopefully you will get to that point if you need to get to that point. So do your research, invest in yourself, you know, and you'll see the light on the other side of things. All right. Make it a great day. It's beautiful out there. Enjoy what you can. Make every morning count. And I think that's it. Goodbye for now.